the decent method you follow is better than the perfect method you quit.
Right.
I think that's some pretty solid advice, especially when like trying to reach those fitness goals, those big ambitious ones.
Yeah, that quote, it really does sum up the whole idea behind the 4-Hour Body, the book by Timothy Ferriss. Basically, it's all about figuring out like what actually works for you personally, and then, the key is sticking with it.
So this deep dive is taking us by the pages through Timothy's book, The 4-Hour Body. We've got a ton of notes and research and some really interesting stories to talk about. A lot of it's pretty unconventional wisdom. You ready to kind of like challenge some of those beliefs we have about, diet and working out and all that?
Oh, absolutely. One of the first things Timothy does is he kind of debunks this whole idea that you need these long, super hard workouts to lose fat. He like points to all this research that shows that shorter workouts but more intense can be just as good, maybe even better.
So he has this term he uses, the minimum effective dose, or M.E.D. Could you maybe explain that a little more for listeners who might not know what that is?
Sure. It's basically like finding the smallest amount of effort you need to like reach the goal you want. Think about it like you're trying to get a tan. You don't have to like lay out in the sun for hours to, get a little color. You probably only need like 15 minutes.
So it's like working smarter, not harder. I like that.
Yeah, and Timothy also uses this analogy. It's like a 100-unit slider to show how he ranks the different parts of like transforming your body.
Okay, I'm interested. What's this slider thing all about?
So he puts diet at the top. It gets 60 units because he thinks it's like the most important part of getting results. Then exercise gets 30 units, and then just 10 units for drugs. And that includes like supplements and even sometimes like actual medications.
Huh. So diet is really the most important thing. And Timothy has this specific diet in the book called the slow carb diet. What's different about this diet?
Well, it's made to control your blood sugar levels. And Timothy thinks that's like the most important part of losing fat. There are like 5 rules to the diet. You can't have any white carbs. You eat the same meals over and over. You don't drink any calories. You skip fruit. And then you get 1 cheat day a week.
Well, that cheat day sounds pretty good. What's the point of having a cheat day, though?
Timothy says it kind of like resets your metabolism and keeps you from plateauing. And he says like really go all out on those cheat days. Like you're allowed to eat anything you want.
And he's got all these stories in the book of people losing tons of weight using this diet.
Oh, yeah. There's this one story about a guy named Phil, and he lost 28 pounds in 6 months, and all he did was weigh himself every day. He didn't even change anything else.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Just like being aware of your weight can be really helpful.
Yeah, and Timothy says you should take pictures of everything you eat for a couple of days. He even says you should post them online so you're like accountable.
Oh, yeah. That would definitely make me think twice about having another slice of pizza.
For sure. It's kind of like using social pressure and being aware of yourself to like help you make healthier choices.
Okay, so we've talked about diet, but what about exercise? Timothy doesn't seem to be into those typical long workouts.
Right. He's more about efficiency. He talks about like manipulating hormones and increasing your body heat to boost your metabolism and like make you lose fat faster.
Okay, so let's talk about the hormone thing first. What does that mean exactly?
So Timothy recommends taking specific supplements like cinnamon alpha-lipoic acid and green tea flavanols. There's some research that shows these can improve your insulin sensitivity and how your body stores fat.
So these supplements could like work together with the slow carb diet.
Exactly. And then there's the heat thing. This is where it gets really interesting. Timothy talks a lot about cold exposure.
Cold exposure, so like ice baths and stuff.
Yeah, like ice packs, cold showers, even ice baths. There's research that shows doing these things can increase fat burning and maybe even increase your testosterone levels.
Wait, so you're saying if I take a cold shower, I could lose weight and gain muscle?
Well, that's what some of the research says. There's always a need for more research, but it's pretty interesting.
I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of the cold, but if it means getting those kinds of results, maybe I need to try taking colder showers.
It's all about finding what works for you and kind of pushing your limits a little. Timothy also talks a lot about sleep in the book. He actually used to have insomnia, and he tried all sorts of stuff to get better sleep.
What kind of stuff did he try?
All kinds of things. He used sleep trackers like the Zeo Fitbit and WakeMate, and even video recorded himself sleeping. He wanted to like figure out his sleep patterns and what he could do to make them better.
Wow. He was serious about getting better sleep. What did he figure out from doing all that?
He found out that deep wave sleep is really important for your body to recover and perform well. And he realized that drinking alcohol before bed messes up your deep wave sleep. And he also learned that having a little snack before bed can help with low blood sugar and being tired in the morning.
Those are some pretty useful tips that anyone can try. Yeah. Did he explore any other sleep stuff?
Oh yeah, he tried polyphasic sleep. That's where you break up your sleep into shorter chunks throughout the day.
That sounds pretty intense.
Yeah.
But I guess it could be good if you want more hours in your day.
It's not for everyone, but it just goes to show that Timothy's willing to try all kinds of different things and challenge the way we normally think about things.
So like with that same idea, Timothy also talks about how to reverse injuries that people think are permanent. And his goal was to do it in just 14 days. What made him want to do that?
He had some chronic injuries himself, and he really wanted to find a way to heal quickly and effectively.
So what did he try?
Well, he tried those expensive treatments like PRP and stem cell injections, but he actually found more relief from alternative therapies.
Which therapies were the best?
He had a lot of pain relief after trying the EGSQ method. It's this postural therapy that's all about like realigning your body. And he also really liked the functional movement screen, or FMS, which helps figure out if you have muscle imbalances that are causing your injury.
So it's all about finding the root of the problem.
Yeah.
And not just treating the symptoms.
Exactly. Timothy also looked into active release technique, or RT. It's designed to break up scar tissue and get your muscles working right again.
Did any other therapies work well for him?
He also explored prolotherapy and biopuncture. Those both involve injections to help your tissues regenerate and lessen pain.
It sounds like Timothy tried everything to find relief.
He really did, and his search for better health and wellness doesn't stop there. He even gets into human potential and tries out breath-holding techniques that he learned from David Blaine.
David Blaine, the magician. I don't get it. What does magic have to do with holding your breath?
Well, Blaine's really good at holding his breath for a long time, and Timothy was interested in the mental and physical discipline involved in that.
Did Timothy learn anything useful from Blaine's approach?
He learned that if you fast for a while before trying to hold your breath, it can actually make you better at it. And also, having less body mass to oxygenate can make it easier to hold your breath because your lung-to-body volume ratio is better.
Okay, well, I'm not sure I'm ready to be buried alive like David Blaine, but that's pretty interesting. It's amazing what our bodies can do with the right training and mindset.
It really is. And that's just a taste of what's in the 4-hour body. We've only just scratched the surface.
He also gets into this whole fascinating thing with like life extension.
Right. Timothy explores all these different ways that you could like slow down aging. Some of them are pretty well known, like caloric restriction. But then he also talks about more like cutting edge ideas like messing with autophagy.
Okay, so autophagy, I'm not really sure what that is. Can you explain it a little?
It's this process that happens naturally where your body like cleans out all the damaged cells and then recycles the parts. It's kind of like spring cleaning, but for your cells. And it's really important for keeping your cells healthy. And it might even like make you live longer.
Okay, so how do you like increase autophagy? Is that all about like crazy fasting or some complicated science thing?
Well, Timothy tried a bunch of different things like caloric restriction and intermittent fasting, which have both shown to maybe help autophagy. He also looked into this thing called protein cycling.
Protein cycling. Is that kind of like carb cycling, which I know some people who are really into fitness do?
Yeah, it's a similar idea, but instead of like changing up how many carbs you eat, you change how much protein you eat. This guy, Dr. Ron Magnery, who wrote the protein cycling diet, says that even just cutting your protein down to like 5% of what you normally eat for just one day a week can be like doing caloric restriction for a long time, and that could maybe trigger autophagy.
So like if you change up how much protein you eat, you could start that whole cell cleaning process.
That's the idea. And it goes along with Timothy's whole thing about finding the minimum effective dose. Like, what's the smallest thing you can change to get the result you want?
I like that. You don't always have to make huge changes to see a difference. Just making small changes consistently can really add up over time.
Totally. And that kind of brings us back to one of the most interesting things about the 4-hour body. Timothy's not afraid to push the limits and try things that are like totally different. We already talked about the breath holding stuff, but he also gets into some things that are even more controversial, like how to enhance your sex life.
Oh yeah, that was definitely a chapter that got my attention. What kind of stuff does Timothy talk about there?
He tried like a ton of different techniques and stuff, from exercises and supplements to more like personal stuff, like the doing method that was created by this woman, Nicole Daedone, who started this group called One Taste.
I think I've heard of One Taste. It got kind of a weird reputation, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. But the doing method itself is about like focusing your attention and touch during sex.
So it's more about being mindful and connected during sex than anything else.
Exactly. It's about like being really intentional and present when you're intimate.
I think it's important to mention here that this is a sensitive topic. So, like, be respectful and careful if you're going to explore this.
Yeah, totally. Consent and communication and boundaries are super important no matter what kind of intimacy you're into.
Okay. Well, we've talked about a lot today, from fitness and life extension stuff to, more personal things like sexual wellness. The 4-hour body definitely makes you think differently and consider all kinds of possibilities.
It does. It's like it's telling us to take control of our own health and well-being and to question everything and just try different things until we find what works for us.
I agree. It's a book that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew and tells you that you could be in charge of your own journey.
So before we finish up this deep dive into the 4-hour body, I want to leave you with a quote from the book that really made me think.
Okay, go for it.
It's by Hans Christian Andersen, and it says, "Just living is not enough. One must have sunshine, freedom, and a little flower."
Sunshine, freedom, and a little flower.
Huh.
That's really nice. What do you think Timothy's trying to say with that quote? Especially in a book that's all about, like, physical stuff.
I think it's saying that there's more to life than just like reaching physical goals or being the best you can be physically. It's a reminder that well-being isn't just about your body. It's about having experiences and enjoying the little things and like connecting with something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, it's about finding those little things, those little flowers that give your life meaning, even if you don't achieve all your physical goals.
I like that. I think that's a great place to stop.
It's a good point, right? Like, even though we're learning about all these ways to, like, improve our bodies and stuff, we shouldn't forget about the rest of it,
Mhm.
Like our minds and our emotions and even, like, spiritual things. It's all part of well-being.
And I think Timothy gets that. Even though he's like super into all these kind of crazy experiments, he's not just trying to be physically perfect. He's like curious. He wants to explore what humans are capable of.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to talk about stuff that's, like, taboo or controversial either. Like we talked about the sex stuff earlier, but he also gets into things like polyphasic sleep. Most people would think that's pretty extreme.
Right. But it all comes back to this idea that he has about experimenting on himself. He's willing to like push the limits and question what everyone thinks is normal. He wants to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and what's possible.
And he wants other people to do that too.
Yeah.
He gives you the information, but he also says that everyone has to find what works best for them.
Exactly. It's like he gives you the tools and the knowledge, but he's saying it's up to you to decide what you want to do with it.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive into the 4-hour body, what are some of the main things our listeners can take away and use in their own lives?
I think the biggest thing is that becoming like your best self, it's a journey. It's not like you just get there one day. There's no one right way to do it. It's about trying things out and seeing how you do and changing things up as you go along.
And being open to new ideas, even if they seem kind of weird or hard at first.
Totally. Timothy's all about questioning what you think you know and getting out of your comfort zone.
And remembering that, like, feeling good isn't just about your body. It's about finding a good balance between improving your body and also taking care of your mind and spirit.
I like that.
So if you're feeling inspired and want to try out some of Timothy's ideas, you can find a link to the 4-hour body in the description of this episode.
And if you liked this deep dive into like self-improvement, make sure to like this episode and subscribe to By the Pages so you don't miss our next deep dive. We'll be talking about a new book and sharing more interesting ideas.
Until then, keep reading and keep learning. And remember, the decent method you follow is better than the perfect method you quit.